Merry meet, guys, and welcome back to Witches of the Moon. I am your Wednesday host, Houston, and this week, week 5, we are talking about haunted objects. There are a lot of cases known throughout the internet and throughout, scrolling around and known today of objects that seem to either move on their own to make noises when there's kind of no batteries or anything inside of them. There's no way for them to talk. There are things to move. They move from one part of the house to other without someone actually physically picking them up and moving them. And sometimes if they are negative in nature, they do cause things to happen, like a poltergeist activity almost. The way I believe haunted objects, and I do have a few, but they're more of a spiritual keeper thing, and that's totally different than what we're talking about this week. Haunted objects that we're talking about this week are those things that have an emotional connection or something that has been attached with someone for so long it kind of embodies the spirit of that. And that's what I think, or, it becomes its own self, like its spirit comes into it. Which is another thing I think a lot of, at least Ava and Rhiannon, the way they spoke about, the emotional energy that can be attached to an object and that can cause a haunting. And I believe that's true. I also believe that there are some earthbound spirits that, especially those in children or young adults, who instead of wandering the earth confused and looking for things, they kind of get trapped in a childhood memory and with an adult. But this is just my perspective. And if I sound like an idiot or if I sound stupid, that's fine. These are just my thoughts, and that are bubbling out late at night. But that's how I think. I view them as spirits that have attached themselves to dolls, whether out of sheer coincidence or maybe that doll was a part of their childhood. So now that they're older, or they were older and died in life, they go back to that doll if it's still around, and they connect themselves to it, and it becomes haunted. The doll, they make the doll move, um, make the doll speak, close its eyes, things like that. There are a lot of evidence. There is a lot of evidence. Grammatically incorrect tonight. There is a lot of evidence out there that, and a lot of my friends or YouTube, not really, well, friends on YouTube, witchy friends, talk about their haunted doll experience, and they've done tours of their house, and they've kind of shared what doll is what, and they're like a paranormal doll investigator or a collector, not investigator, a collector of paranormal dolls. I don't really go out and seek them. I don't really, excuse me. Um, Sorry. Um, I don't, like I said, I don't go out and seek them just because I don't really, I myself at this time don't really want to bring that into my house. Sorry, that's my mother. But not all of them are bad, and so there are some that are good and beneficial and kind of help the household. I think a lot of, at least the ones that I've seen Lady Grave Dancer do a couple videos on hers, and then Sunshine Morning Ray, and I think Ravenflower has done something of the sort, I believe. But I know Lady Grave Dancer has, and I know Sunshine. Um, they both have. Those are the only really two I know. I know there's actually a couple. I don't think she has her channel now anymore. She changed it so many times. It was Midnight, but she had a couple. She had a haunted doll collection. There's a couple people that I know personally that like the haunted doll feel. I'm just, that's just not my thing. I do like to work with spirits. I do, but I kind of like to work with them on a spirit keeper level where I kind of, they're connected like and tallied to an object, like a stone, which this is not one, but they're connected to like a stone which has like a, which I believe is like a cell phone to them. I can call in and I work with them. I don't consider that a haunted object. I consider it a haunted object where the spirit resides within the stone or within the doll or what have you. There's other things other than dolls that are haunted. There are, there's cases of rocking chairs, there's cases of pianos, there's even cases of the whole house being haunted or being, haunted by a spirit or kind of taken over from a spirit. Um, I apologize. Again, that was my mom. I apologize. So, I don't think that haunted dolls are necessarily a bad thing. I do believe there's some that can be bad. Those usually stem from an extremely emotional, traumatic time, such as the alleged Annabelle from I think it's The Conjuring 2, The Conjuring, with Ed and Lorraine Warren. They're one of my two psychic investigators, paranormal investigators. Um, there's like a whole museum. I think like what Rhiannon said, it's up north somewhere. But there's all these objects in the museum that are haunted. There's a rocking chair, from what I remember. There's Annabelle. There is a dress, a wedding dress, I believe, of some sort, and there is a bunch of other stuff, tons of other cool stuff, and they all have a story and a background, and they kind of tell you what happens and things like that. Who else had a haunted doll? I think Ashira Star Goddess on here had a video about haunted dolls. There's a couple other people on here that I know that have had experiences with haunted dolls before. I just can't remember. I do not. Um, I am particularly am freaked out by porcelain dolls, just because my grandmother kept so many in her bedroom. My grandmother traveled the world, and from every place she would get a fan, which is I have most of them because my grandmother passed away last year. I have most of them to remember her by, um, and she also got porcelain dolls. They were creepy. Who they were creepy. That and clowns are like clowns and spiders are like my top of phobia list. I'm not a fan of. Um, I've never seen Chucky. That's not a movie that I wanted to see. It's just something about the porcelain doll, especially when they're so lifelike and at night. It's very freaky. My mom and dad have one, but I make sure that I don't look at it whenever I go in the front room at dark. I make sure I don't look on that side of the room because it's just creepy. It's still in the box. It's not anything bad, but that's just my personal story. So I do think that haunted dolls, once you get to know them and get to know their personalities, they each have kind of a different person since they are a different spirit in each one, or can be in each one. That they can be beneficial to the household. You can become friends with them, and you can work with them through your magical practice. Um, I don't think that you should go about binding an earthbound spirit to a vessel. And I know that may sound contradicting, um, because as spirit keepers, there's entities that are bound to particular vessels by conjurers. But with those, they are bound so willingly. They are done so by making a contract with the conjurer that they would help the person who received the stone with spiritual guidance and things of that nature. Whereas an earthbound spirit who's trapped and wants to move on, I don't suggest that you intentionally go out and bind them to a particular place when they need to move on, or if they want to move on. They might not want to move on, but I still don't think it's right to do that. I guess I'm just contradicting myself. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns about that, leave them down below for me in the description box, and we'll have a good discussion. Because at this very point in time, I'm not really confused my viewpoints, because I do love being a spirit keeper, but when it comes to like haunted dolls and haunted objects, I am not a fan. Every object that I get from like an antique store, I moved my camera, sorry. Every object I get from like an antique store or a thrift store, I cleanse before I bring in the house. I wipe it down good with Florida water, and I do a sage and Palo Santo cleansing, or dragon's blood if I have it, just to get all the bad, not the bad, but the other energies that aren't, that I don't want to welcome into my home. So if you have any questions, like I said, leave them down below for me in the comment section. And I hope you guys have a great rest of your week. And until next week, many blessings.